and welcome to the Standing Committee on City Finance and Services meeting on Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. This committee meeting is being convened in person and by electronic means, as authorized under Part 14 of the Procedure Bylaw, City of Vancouver electronic meetings. As such, committee members and the public may participate in person or by electronic means. If a committee member attending by electronic means lost the connection during the voting process, team members are available to get you back online quickly while the voting process is suspended. The team members' contact information has been circulated to you. Video of committee members speaking, presentation, and vote results will be projected on the live stream when available. Committee members are reminded that, in accordance with Section 14.13 of the Procedure Bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. In case of an emergency where we need to evacuate the building, I would like to direct your attention to the exits. There are two exits beyond the glass door and to the left. If the glass doors are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits in this council chamber. Please use stairs, do not use the elevator. If you require accessibility assistance, please remain at your location and wait for security staff member to get you to a safe location. I would like also highlight that there is a defibrillator located at the end of the hallway outside of this council chamber. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. I also want to take a moment to recognize the immense contributions of City of Vancouver's team members who work hard every single day to make our city an incredible place to live, work, and play. Deputy City Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Councillor Zhou in the chair. Mayor Sim. Councillor Carr. Councillor Kirby-Yung. Yep, I see you on the WebEx. Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly.
Present.
Councillor Boyle is on a leave of absence for personal reasons all day. Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague. Councillor Klassen. Councillor Meisner is on a leave of absence for civic business from 9 a.m. to 12. You have quorum, Chair Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy City Clerk. The first item on the agenda is the proclamation for the International Day for Older Persons and National Seniors Day, which will be presented by Mayor Sim. We are pleased to welcome members of City's Older Person and Elders Advisory Committee to recognize International Older Person and Seniors Day with a council proclamation. Canada celebrates National Seniors Day on October the 1st, an occasion for all Canadians to join in celebrating older adults across Canada, whether a parent, a co-worker, a neighbor, or a friend. We are proud to acknowledge the contributions of older adults across our city, province, and country have made and continue to make to our families, communities, and society. On behalf of my colleagues, I would like to thank Mark, Dale, Sana, Varush, and Richard from the city's Older Person and Elders Advisory Committee for being here, as well as Anthony, the lead from city staff. Now on to the proclamation. If my fellow council members will join me, we will read the proclamation for International Day of Older Person and the National Seniors Day together. So let's go ahead.
Morning, everyone. It's so great to see so many old friends here. I'm getting in trouble for cracking that joke, but Richard, that one was for you. And I didn't mean old as in old. I meant we've known each other for a hell of a long time and absolutely love you. Look, I'm just going to speak from the heart here for just a couple of minutes. First of all, I actually, when I saw the title of this proclamation, I know it's an official proclamation, but I actually don't like saying older or seniors. We use the term welderly. Sorry, where I come from, I've been involved in, seniors care for a very long time. And we talk about the welderly, and it's not like financial wealth. It is like the depth and knowledge and the love and care that you've sort of shown the city, the province, and the country. The transfer of generational knowledge. Um, it's absolutely incredible, and I can tell you, we get to stand up here because we get to stand on your shoulders. And you've literally built this city, this province, and this country. You've basically passed your knowledge to a whole generation of individuals. And so, from the bottom of all of our hearts, thank you. Now, like Councillor Joe mentioned, this is a group effort. This is a team effort. I always say that I think the role of mayor gets way too much credit. We're all team members here, and nothing's possible without everyone on the team, including everyone at the City of Vancouver. So, with that, we're gonna read this proclamation as a team.
All right. Office of the Mayor, City of Vancouver, British Columbia Proclamation, International Day of Older Persons and National Seniors Day. Whereas on October 1st, communities across Canada will join together to recognize National Seniors Day.
And whereas the United Nations also recognized October the 1st as International Day of Older Person.
And whereas older persons are a diverse and growing population in the City of Vancouver.
And whereas older persons have made important contributions to the history and legacy of the City of Vancouver.
And whereas the City of Vancouver is committed to ensuring that older persons are valued and engaged in shaping its future.
And whereas International Day of Older Persons and National Seniors Day focuses on celebrating and recognizing older persons and increases public awareness of their vital role in society and the community.
Now, therefore, I, Ken Sim, the Mayor of the City of Vancouver, on behalf of all of my teammates, the elected officials, and more importantly, all the incredible people that choose to work at the City of Vancouver every single day, do hereby proudly declare October the 1st, 2024 as International Day of Older Persons and National Seniors Day in the City of Vancouver. Did you want to come up and say a few words? Oops, oh, sorry.
So I just want to bring up Mark White, who is the chair of the Older Persons and Elders Advisory Committee. And Mark has done incredible work with that group. And I would like to acknowledge also his co-chair, Susan Scott Gabe, who's not here with us today. Mark's work has been absolutely exemplary in this committee. He has taken the issues of trying to bring forward the needs and the concerns of older persons in this city like nobody else. The fact that we have an older persons lead in Anthony Kupferschmidt is really the work of Mark and his committee. The fact that we are here today talking about older persons and trying to make this an official acknowledgement is also due to the work of Mark and Susan and his committee. Mark and Susan let me know that they will be stepping down. They are not going to be continuing as chair and vice chair of the committee. They've been in this role for a very long time, and I think Mark feels a great sense of accomplishment. So I want to bring Mark up just to say a few words as he is about to ready to leave that role. Come on, Mark.
Great.
First, I'd like to thank this council and the previous council as well for their work around bringing forth the strategic lead, Anthony, into the fold on city staff. And I think that when I think back on my, I guess, last 6 years of activity, the city staff are incredible. And I'd like to thank them for all their work and careful listening to issues that we bring up. Today's an auspicious day, October the 9th, and it's wonderful that this proclamation is happening in council on this day, because it's actually Ageism Awareness Day, which was started in the US, but now is being recognized around the world. The International Day of Older Persons is recognized annually across municipalities across Canada. And I think that there's a growing recognition on the population growth and how we're now a pretty significant group in terms of aging older persons who still contribute to the city. So I'd just like to thank my team, because I know that you were giving me a fair amount of credit, Councillor Klassen, but really the work of the committee is the committee as a whole. And we couldn't have done it. It couldn't have been really accomplished what we have accomplished, which I'm very proud of, but without all the committee members who represent seniors organizations across the city. So thank you very much. And thank you so much for the proclamation.
All right, so Leslie, I think we lost the quorum, right? Okay, yeah, there we go. Councilor Kubiak is here. Yeah, perfect. Now we have the quorum. All right, thanks everyone. That was a really heartwarming proclamation. Also remind my parents who are actually 10,000 kilometers away from me. I really miss them. Anyway, let's go back to council meeting. Yeah. All right, so this is the plan for the day. Any comments on agenda item can be sent to council using the web form on city's website. The link to that form will be posted on X at VanCityClerk. I also want to note City of Vancouver's long-standing commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. So I remind committee that when addressing speakers and the team members, we will avoid using gender honorifics. We will instead refer to the person by the first and last name, role, or title. Today we have one presentation, 3 reports, and 3 council members' motion. Here is the plan for the day. We're going to break at lunch, at noon for lunch, followed by the in-camera meeting. Return at 3 p.m. to continue to deal with the remainder of the agenda. If needed, the committee will recess at 5 p.m. for a dinner break and reconvene at 6 p.m. to complete the agenda. If we do not complete all items on the agenda today, we will recess and then reconvene on Tuesday next week, October 15, 2024 at 3 p.m. Now we're going to do the matters adopted on consent. The committee now consider matters adopted on consent. We have report 1 to 3 on the consent agenda for the committee's consideration. The committee may adopt the recommendations for reports 1 and 2, 3 on consent. Okay, does any member wish to hold any items for debate or questions to team members? Okay, seeing none. Sorry, not there yet. Does any member want to declare conflict of interest on the consent item? Okay, so we have reports 1 to 3 for the consent approval. So moved by Councilor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councilor Dominado. All right. All those in favor say yeah. Opposed say
Yay.
nay. Okay, this motion carries unanimously. Okay, so report 1, agricultural land reserve, soil deposit at 2999 West 53rd Avenue. The second one is a contract award for value-added reseller for the network and data center hardware, software, services, support, and warranty. The third one is contract award for construction and services for the Sunset Senior Center building, general contractor. All those 3 items has been approved on consent. So the next item is presentation. We have 1 presentation today. Inappropriate public behaviors, updating the city's violence prevention program to ensure a respectful and safe work environment for employees. So we have Magnus, Chief Safety Officer, here to present this presentation. Please go ahead, Magnus.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Sadra Singh, Deputy City Manager. I'll just offer some brief opening remarks to provide some context for this presentation. So I'm joined here today by our Chief Safety Officer, Magnus Enfelt, and a number of members from his team, as well as operational directors from various city operations. As you know, we have thousands of staff across multiple departments working out in the community and here at City Hall providing public service every single day. And we provide service across a variety of platforms out of our offices, electronically, and out in the public realm, and out in a variety of community spaces and city facilities. The vast number of our public service interactions are healthy and positive and constructive interactions. But what we are seeing, like many other employers and many other sectors across Canada, across the continent, really, is an increasing incivility, increasing hostility at times, increasing violent incidents and threats towards staff. We are seeing these across a variety of our, actually almost all of our public service areas, and to the point where we are starting to make some updates to our violence prevention program, a longstanding program, but we, like other employers, are starting to enhance and adapt our program to the changing circumstances that we're facing with the broader kind of societal trend that we're seeing. So what you'll hear today from Magnus is some of that context, some of the experiences that our teams are having just to bring this issue to light and to put some life to it for you, so you hear this, as well as outlining some of the interventions and changes that we're making to our work. In particular, what we want to do is have this presentation here so that we can flag for the public as well some of the changes that they're going to see. They've already seen some here at City Hall in terms of increased screening before council meetings, but they will start to see some other changes in our procedures and practices, and Magnus will outline that for you today as well. So I will end my introduction here. I thank the team for their work and all of our staff who provide public service with integrity and with dedication across the city, and just expressing our commitment to ensuring their safety as they do this work. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. Okay. Morning. Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Magnus Anfelt. I'm the Chief Safety Officer of the City of Vancouver. And as Sandra said, I'm going to talk about inappropriate public behaviors and the work we're doing to update our violence prevention program to ensure respectful and safe work environment for our employees. So the agenda today, we'll talk about the public service interactions and the public behavior continuum. We'll talk about the increase that we're seeing in inappropriate public behaviors, a little bit about the relevant laws, regulations, and policies, the 5 key public behavior concerns that staff have brought forward. I'm going to share some stories about what our staff are experiencing, and then what we're doing to update our program and how that will then be seen, expected, or what the public will see. So, public service, that's, those interactions are vital to our work. And when we talk about public here, what I mean here is anyone who is a non-employee that is interacting with city staff. It can be business owners, patrons, service users, visitors, etc., etc. So that's when I say public today, that's what we mean. And most of our staff, they interact with the public in every day in person, by phone, by email, and through social media. And the work or the interactions can sometimes be consequential for the public. So sometimes emotions can run high, and we appreciate obviously constructive feedback and respectful critique of our work. But having said that, the incidence of inappropriate public behaviors, they're increasing both in frequency, complexity, and in intensity. So if we look at the continuum here to the right, starting at the top, as I said, public servants we're open to respectful and constructive critique, but it can sometimes be unpleasant. But as I said, stakes can run high and emotions can run high if the public is trying to get a permit, understand the tax bill, or have just received a parking ticket. So this is a continuum, and we're going from green to the orange, where I talk about unreasonable and unacceptable behavior that we're facing, and I will talk about what I mean with unreasonable behavior or unproductive communications on the next slide. So going from unpleasant into the unreasonable, we're getting into the yelling and screaming that staff are experiencing, bullying and harassment, personal insults, belittling, and then getting into the unacceptable and criminal behavior that we're also faced with our staff at times, threat and criminal harassment, physical aggression, and physical violence. And this has a significant impact on staff, and that last box there, the red, meets the threshold to lay a charge under the criminal code. But there's a lot of nuances here, and can easily go from along this continuum and interaction. So we're seeing an increase in inappropriate public behavior, and what I mean is it's the negative ways that customer can act towards employees during public service interaction, and it often follows that escalating pattern. It goes against the behavior is what goes against what is socially accepted as respectful, and the cost can vary. It can be related or unrelated to the issue that or the services that the public are receiving and their interaction to staff. And some of the factors can be managed by the employer or by the worker, while others relate completely to the characteristics or life experience of the individual. So if we're looking at some of if we're looking more bigger picture, workers across a range of industries are experiencing these escalating inappropriate public behaviors, and that also affects lower moods, deteriorating moods by our staff. And if we look at BC, the acts of violence here has increased by 25% in the 5 years from 2018 to 2022, and that's reflected in the numbers of accepted work safe claims in that period. As threats to elected officials multiply, the RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhaime has encouraged the federal government to consider drafting new legislation to make it easier for police to act on these things. And also at the UBCM, there was a couple of items on the agenda referencing the same problem with harassment of elected local government officials and personal and defamatory attacks on local government leaders. So, if we're looking at relevant laws, regulations, and policies, we have the Canadian Human Rights Act, we've got the Criminal Code on the federal level. The Human Rights Act, extends the law to ensure equal opportunities to individuals who may be victims of discriminatory practices based on a set of prohibitive grounds. So we need to, make sure whatever we do, we have that in the back of our minds. Criminal Code of Canada defines the conduct that constitutes crimes and offences and includes a wide range of those, and describes the powers and procedures to follow for investigation and prosecution for an offence, and also established a degree of punishment. The BC Human Rights Code that aims to protect the individuals from discrimination and promote equality here in BC. We got the Workers' Compensation Act, set out the general duties of employers, workers, and supervisors to ensure and protect the health and safety of workers. We have a legal obligation to address harassment and violence in the workplace that put our employees at risk. We got the OHS regulation. The purpose here of this regulation is to promote occupational health and safety and to protect workers and other persons present at the workplace from work-related risks to their health, safety, and well-being. Going into our city sphere, we have our Respect in the Workplace policy, which was, recently updated or launched in the beginning of this year. Supports a workplace where everyone is treated with dignity, respect, and care. However, it doesn't apply to the public. It does not address inappropriate public behavior, and we cannot require the public to participate in investigations. Some of our departments have also developed code of conduct or behavioral expectations, where they outline, what we expect of the public and what the consequences for non-compliance could be. And it's generally service area focused, like Parks Board have a way to say people cannot come to their facility, and it doesn't affect or address the behaviors in the public realm. So all that as a background. As I said, we've seen the increase in this inappropriate behavior, and having talked a lot to staff, we're seeing this inappropriate behaviors experienced across the entire organization. I'm not going to read up all those areas there, but it's across basically all departments. And what I've heard from, or what we've heard from staff, is that the incidents are increasing in numbers and severity. They're impacting both physical and psychological health for staff. Some incidents are impacting personal lives. The incidents have become regular occurrences, and more guidance are needed for difficult situations. So the behaviors we've seen, the unproductive communication, intimidation, verbal aggression, humiliation, threats, and physical violence. And it's through all our contact channels, from the email to phone calls, service counters, council meetings, board meetings, and public consultations, and also out in the field. So I'd like to share a little bit some stories that our staff have shared, gone through incidents reports, etc. And I think it's important that you're aware of what we're faced with. So animal control start, and this is representative examples of types of incidents, you know, from across the organization. So animal control, they're dealing with unpredictable dog and dog owners not respecting their work, and the number of dogs in the city have, you know, exploded, and there's also more aggressive dogs. Last fall, animal control officer was found a dog, no tag, no license, and tied to a tree. No one seemed to know where the dog belonged to. They picked the dog up, brought it to their vehicle, got into their vehicle. The owner ran up to the vehicle and started banging pounding on it, and more people came, like a mob came, swarmed that vehicle, started shouting and filming, and, you know, needless to say, the animal control officer stayed in the vehicle and called 911. Another person showed up trying to break the window. Meanwhile, the driver or the owner of the dog lays down in front of the vehicle to prevent it from moving. The police arrives, and the mob sort of yell at the police, but eventually they were able to disperse the crowd. Needless to say, that was a very, very traumatic experience for our animal control officer. In sanitations, you know, they're experiencing anything from harassments and foul language to thrown items, and there's even been times with chokeholds. Social media is another way where they've been affected, and that's just another example of the postings, the tone of the postings. They also range along that spectrum from sort of unpleasant, inappropriate to completely unacceptable and criminal. But there've been postings about our staff referencing like veiled threats, referring staff's obituaries. An example: two female sanitation workers were on their break, stopping at a Tim Hortons. One of them went inside, where saw a person pacing outside the vehicle. The driver was in the vehicle, saw this individual go directly to the female worker in the lineup, just struck her from behind on the side of her face and jaw, broken tooth and concussion. So that's just completely, unprovoked and very targeted. Urban Issues did engagement work with members of the public on East Hastings. So members of ACCS and sanitation were talking to members of the public, asking them to remove certain items that were blocking city property. And one of them pulls out a knife, launches against our employees or lunges against them, and began to chase them down the street. 311. So I didn't talk about this unproductive communications, but this is an area where we have, as you see here, we have, when I talked about unproductive communications, that's where we get phone calls and emails that are either, very lengthy. We don't get, people don't accept our answers. They come back with the same question. We've answered it properly, or just continues to not, provide the information we require for our work. So 311, I think, is a good example. We have two individuals. When I did this, I think this is numbers from August. Two of them had called 241, respective 440 times so far that year. And one of them is always aggressive. He constantly swears and raises his voice and refers 311 staff, CD staff, VPD, all of staff in a derogatory manner. he doesn't ask, let staff ask clarifying questions like, what do you want us to help you with? He just wants to berate whoever is there on the line. Park rangers, maybe that, how would you feel if you were doing a job and the member of the public follows you and tells you, you should be ashamed of yourself, like for doing your job? How do you sleep at night? I bet your family is proud of you. So this is something that they are experiencing, again and again. We have an example, same with park rangers, negative postings online, and even posters put up with the face of rangers with that type of commentary. In trying to enforce a bylaw, having asked the individual 3 times for their items to be removed, starting to remove a tarp. They were belittled by the woman who weren't complying with the request, and basically hit the ranger in the head with the bottle. VPD was at site at that time. So if you're working as a ranger, there's many of these examples, but there were 2 incidents per week where there were aggressive individual that you or your colleagues were faced with that did not result in a violent incident. That's just the verbal part of it. Parking enforcement, they deal with frequent daily verbal abuse or threats while on patrol. Example, taxi driver stopped to let out a passenger in a no stopping zone and got a ticket, and when asking why, and it was explained why, starting to yelling profanities, using the F word, etc., and calling names. And the driver approached the officer and without warning just punched him in his face. Driver walked away, but VPD was called, and witnesses nearby supported the story of the parking enforcement officer. Another incident is another vehicle stopping in a no stopping zone, and after trying to serve the ticket, the parking enforcement officer was thrown coffee at by the owner of the vehicle. So if you were working in parking enforcement in 2023, one of your colleagues were assaulted every 2 weeks. We have Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services. State here that there was a van on fire behind the fence, and a person behind the fence that they had to help cut up the fence, get him out of there, and he was telling them to go in and help saving his child that was still in there. So the officers went back into the fire and the flames to save the child, which they later found out did not exist, and the individual they have saved came back into the area with a hammer and ripped off the mask of the firefighter and hit them in their head. So another of those very unprovoked situations where we're trying to help. And our urban compliance team, as says on the slide here, often subject to racist remarks from residents when doing fire inspections. Well, last week, streets operations, an employee was washing the sidewalk on Georgia, and a member just comes up from behind, just pushing them down. You can't see it; you're just attacked. So they happen in an alarming number. These interactions, and has a long-lasting impact on our teams. So with that, we obviously need to do more. So. We do have, as Sandra said, violence prevention program, but it needs to be updated. Currently we do a lot of training in de-escalation, nonviolent crisis intervention. We have psychological health and safety support, both through our EFAP program and through counselor services. We have our threat management unit to deal with threats that come in on emails, etc. But we need to do more. So we've started. We've started and looked at in three different areas here: regulations and policy, preventative measures, and response and analysis. So the Respect in the Workplace policy was rolled out early this year, as I mentioned. That was updated, combined our human rights and harassment policy and our respectful workplace policy. Underway, so we're working with the team to develop and implementing behavioral expectations across all areas of our public service, and then that will follow then with bylaws to address these public behaviors. And upcoming, we're planning the Respect in the Workplace policy and the Prevent Violence in the Workplace policy will both have to be updated as will bylaws. There is WorkSafe BC new requirements coming that we have to incorporate, and provide staff with better guidance and support how to disengage in some of these situations. And also with those behavioral expectations, have a staged, procedures for staged warnings before a service impact, like a warning, then some impact or more impact, up to service refusals. Preventative measures, we've removed staff directory from our public website, from QuickFind. Sandra said we've strengthened our security here at City Hall with screening and educated specific customer groups. That came out of one of our discussions with our staff. We realized that from our park and enforcement officers that many businesses were not aware that they could apply for commercial vehicle permits, allowing them to stop in a commercial loading zone. So we targeted communications out to that group to educate them about that. Underway on preventative measures, park and enforcement is piloting different uniforms because they had a sense of, well, if I use this, I'm less attacked or less. The interactions are not as bad as if I wear, a formal uniform. We're exploring the feasibility of a body-worn camera pilot, also for park and enforcement officers. We'll continue to enhance our security at City Hall. We all saw what happened on Sunday night. That's on our front doors. Ongoing training and increased situational awareness is also happening. And we're going to expand and update those so we get more consistency across our training materials and also assess and evaluate new technology. On response and analysis, we're adding department by department into our centralized reporting software run out of our City Protective Services. And we've also provided access to Connect to Care, which is in addition to EFAP, a mental health direct line to get a counselor, to talk to a counselor right away, completely anonymously, is through British Columbia Municipal Safety Association that have put up that pilot. Underway, we're enhancing staff support. We're monitoring cases through the courts to understand where people who have been charged, where those cases end up. And we're expanding that aligning the incident reporting and the records keeping. We need to standardize metrics across our city departments, have similar definitions for what we're reporting on, and also use data to support program adjustments. And also enhance our standard response procedures across the city. So, what will the public see? So, as the key issues that the staff had addressed or had raised. So, on the prevention, we're clarifying, the public behavior expectations across our public-facing services. So, basically, the idea here, you've probably seen it in many locations. BC Ferries have everyone deserves feel safe and respected. Abuse, including verbal abuse of any kind, will not be tolerated and will result in denial of service. Something to that regards. That's what we mean when we say behavioral expectations. And also be clear what the potential consequences is, like in using the BC Ferries example, denial of service. And of course, it will be different in different areas of the organization, but we need to have the standard for the city, and then the implementation in terms of consequences and the triggers will vary department by department. But having that standardized for all our staff to know that this is not okay, I am okay to say no. I don't need to call my supervisor. I can actually say no, because we have call your supervisor, but just because you're a supervisor don't mean you have thicker skin. Also, the increased, and that's the disengagement by staff to see how we can get out of those situations quicker, and increased measures to ensure safety. We, as I said, we'll see if we can pilot the body-worn camera project for parking enforcement. There is more security presence at City Hall, and then the administrative consequences I talked about. So that's, these things is prevention and response, both of them. The administrative consequences of non-compliance, making sure that we also communicate why someone is not getting the service or what they did. Like, well, we're not going to answer your emails for X period of time because of this, and this. So those are the things that we're working on, these consequences should include a range of impacts: restrictions to contact certain people, access restrictions, denial of service, pursuit of legal remedies, etc. And of course, we will also need to have an appeal process. That's also very clear, like fair and transparent on what we're doing and why we're doing it. I think that's very, very clear. So that is the end of my presentation.
All right. Okay, thanks, Magnus. Thanks for the presentation. Of course, it's a very important topic for our staff and also public. Okay, so committee members, you have up to 5 minutes to ask questions of team members. Are there any questions? Okay, first one, Mayor Sim, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much for the presentation. When I think of our team members here, and I'm going to use the wrong words because we're not in a parent-child whatever relationship, very far from it. But the way I look at it is everyone here, if everyone was someone's kid or parent or grandparent and they're working at the city, how would we behave differently? And so those are the lenses. The safety of our people is paramount. So my question to you is, what do you need from us to make sure that all of our people are safe?
Well, I guess thank you for the question. It's the support which I feel is I see around the room when I present that is there, that this is a topic that we need to put efforts to, and as we're embarking on the various components of these and bring recommendations back, just the ongoing support and recognition that this is a problem, and if additional work is needed or other commitments when we come back to council, that support is there. And I looking at the faces across the room when I presented it, it's very clear that everyone said this is not okay. We need to improve. So,
Thanks, Mayor. Councilor Corbière.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the presentation, obviously echoing the sentiment about the essential need to keep our staff safe and have a good experience at work while delivering that service to the public. My question really is around public access. I've received, I'm sure other councillors have, a few different emails around from members of the public expressing that they can't get to a real person anymore, that phone lists have been taken off the city website. I think it was one I got recently. That was cited, and so how do they, and so I appreciate, in terms of not having identifying locations or identifying individual characteristics, those kinds of things, but people are just trying to, the flip side, navigate some city services, and they're like, I just need to find out who is responsible for something, or how do I do that? And what I'm hearing is, well, I have a departmental phone number, or there's no phones anymore, no phone list, whether this is truly accurate or not. But I can know if the city is opaque and I can't get to somebody for service, particularly sort of finding out the individual who's the person I'm supposed to talk to about X or Y or my permit or this or whatever it is. So can you kind of comment on how we continue to
Well, I guess
help
that's
people get to the services they need and still keep our staff
yeah,
supported?
I guess that's the flip side of this, which has, you know, it's a consequence that we had to pull the names of Quick Find, but there are the contact channels to the normal areas of business. The question of how to address, you know, who is responsible for a certain area, you know, we have 311, and those are also ways to get to us and get then back to the individual.
Is there, so just for clarity then, so if there aren't any sort of phones or contacts, if it's not names, like, can there be roles, or is there a way that are there other options or alternatives? Instead of somebody calling 311, they get somebody that I hear that doesn't know their request. It takes a while to get back to them, and they still can't get to the person that I just have a question to ask about how something works.
Okay.
Maybe I can address that. So I think, take the point, and really 311 is our primary contact channel for the city. That is our switchboard. We used to publish a phone book of individual phone numbers for the entire city. It was a very ineffective way for people to connect with us. Generally, people are looking for that person to solve their problem, but it's very difficult to figure out who that is. And that's really the role that 311 plays, is they understand the nature of the question and who it needs to be routed to. I acknowledge that there are some members of the public who don't like that system. It's a far more effective way, both for us as an organization to respond. There was a huge efficiency that the city gained in creating the 311 channel. But it's also actually most effective for the public to go through that mechanism as well, as opposed to trying to figure out who they need to speak to. So I would say always we're looking for opportunities to improve that, and happy to take, if there are particular cases where our systems aren't working and people are not getting the information they need, we can certainly need to improve those. But the notion that the best way for people to solve their problems is to try and find the individual employee out of our 9,000 people that work here, I do think 311 is the right solution. We just need to keep improving it.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Can I ask a quick follow-up on that? So if I'm Sarah and I'm the member of the public and I call in, will I actually get a call transferred, or do I have to wait? Will my request be forwarded and I wait for someone to call me back? Like, I'm just trying to understand, what is that real experience going to be like for somebody? And it would be really helpful for council to have an understanding of that.
It depends on the nature of the question.
Okay.
Yeah. So in many cases, it would be a 301 customer service representative creating a case and passing it to the department for a contact back. We don't have, in most of the organization, we don't have staff available to take calls at all kind of during business hours. So it does require calls back. And also the departments need to figure out who is the right person to actually answer the question. So it really depends on the nature of questions. In other cases, 311 can transfer to a warm individual who's there to take a call, but not all of our departments have that capability to accept that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Carbillo. Councilor Dominado.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate that you're bringing this forward into our attention. And unfortunately, I think I'll save my comments for later. I do have a couple of questions. One, just with respect to prevention and response and taking some actions. I know at the doors here we have a board that has some expectations of behavior and what's acceptable and unacceptable in chambers and in City Hall. I'm curious, do we have a visible code of conduct in all of our public facilities where it's very clear what are acceptable behaviors, what are unacceptable behaviors? I have seen this with other levels of government. I also worked on codes of conduct for the public school system and independent school system. So we were really explicit, not to say it's going to prevent everything, but it was really explicit about this is the kind of culture we want to foster and support. Here's what's acceptable, here's what's not acceptable. So going in. And I'm just curious, do we have that in every public facility, that whether it be our property tax office or whether it's a community center?
Well, many departments have developed some kind of that. Not all of them have it. So to answer your question, I would say no. They're not in every single facility, and they're not consistent. And that's the work we have to do to create that, so we have a consistency and clarity for staff that regardless of which facility this is the City of Vancouver, we will not accept this type of behavior, and also have some of the consequences there. But then also drill down on that. What are the procedures that the departments then will have to implement to deal with those situations when they, say, can you come back in an hour because I'm not going to deal with you now, or whatever that may be. That would have to be developed more on the departmental basis based on the service that is being provided.
Right. So, yes, so internally you'd need some procedures around how you handle it. And what I'm referring to is more that public-facing piece.
And that's exactly, that would be there
does
as
seem
well. The
inconsistent.
signage, just what I meant with the BC Ferries example and the Vancouver Coastal Health, or, there's many of them out there.
No, I'm glad to hear that, because I think it's not necessarily going to mitigate some of the incidents that you talked about where someone was struck from behind or, accosted, the Tim Hortons and things like that. But I think we are setting a tone. My other question is just circling back, similar to Councillor Kirby-Young, around not so much the phone list, but the triage. I appreciate the explanation by the city manager around 311 and that being sort of that point of point of information for individuals. I'm curious if we're drilling down to look at the 311 service and its function, and particularly because I appreciate that we're not always going to get somebody on the line to talk with someone, but I think the feedback I hear from the public is oftentimes they end up in a long chain of emails back and forth. And really what they want to do is get on the phone with one or two members of our team or staff in departments to problem solve, to troubleshoot their issue. And I'm just curious about that side of the workflow, and whether we're looking at that in terms of trying to respond to public queries. And again, I'm not saying it's necessarily going to not result in some of the things that we're saying, but I just find that's the feedback I generally get, is that people just want to get, I just have a really quick question. I want to get something clarified instead of 25 emails back and forth. So that's maybe
Thanks, Councillor. So it'd be helpful, I think, to, as you hear those complaints, certainly we can take those and take a look at them. I would say probably my sense from what you've described there is the issues are not arising with 311, they're arising with the department that the calls are being referred to. So and I'm sure there are improvements that we can make in that regard in terms of processes for following up, timelines, and so on. So certainly happy to take those, and again, I expect that there will be opportunities for improvement, and we can work with those particular departments, whether it's DBL or engineering or whoever it is that planning, who our folks are trying to get a hold of, and make sure that we're being as effective as we can be in addressing those concerns once they get to the department.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for the presentation. That's all my questions.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Klassen, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. It's incredibly eye-opening and important information. Is there, I know from my experience working around the healthcare industry that lost work time for a healthcare worker is resulting from perhaps a bodily injury or an accident is very costly to the system. Are we quantifying the actual cost of potential lost work time from our staff who are experiencing these incidents?
I don't think we're doing that today, and that's something I could look into in that case bring back, because we're not splitting that out today, no.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are we now, given the frequency of these incidents, starting to equip and train, provide training for staff so they can recognize, obviously when somebody shoves you from behind, there's nothing you can really do to really respond to that. But if you do have a call or a threatening situation or harassment, how do we equip our staff to be able to respond in real time, so they know when there is something, either an opportunity to de-escalate or even just back away from an incident?
Yeah, so there many of the departments use different types of training for that today, and there is more we can do about it. It's about that situational awareness and the de-escalation. Those pieces are available training, but I think we need to do better there. We need to expand that also to departments that are, maybe not seen as needing, hasn't traditionally utilized that type of training. Because every department is doing their own training, and I'll get a better handle on what do we need to do for training for certain, what is the level 1, level 2, level 3, if I put it that way. We're doing a project within our safety team of looking at risks per task for our staff. Now, all risks, it's not just the violent risk, but trying to go from looking at our organization instead of looking at it department by department, looking at, okay, what are the tasks we're doing and what type of training that the people with a similar task need. So it's, bylaw enforcement, we have bylaw officers in many different departments. Should we not have more similar practices in terms of how we train and teach them about how to operate? So I guess to answer your question, we do have that, but we need to do more and expand that.
Thanks very much. My sort of last question, you make reference to harassment through social media posts, and I know what a scourge that this unrestrained social media has become in our world. What potential tools or monitoring or complaint process do we have? I know that they're very limited, and it's also very time consuming, but can you just tell me how social media is potentially, how we respond to some of that?
Yeah, we're trying to monitor what's happening out there, and if we see things that are, in violation of the policies of those platforms, our communications team is actually reaching out to and we're big enough to have a little bit of a voice to get them pulled down, because they don't see everything themselves. So that's one part, but trying to monitor that through different means. Both, I know communications monitoring, our City Protective Services have some monitoring as well. So that's how we deal with that. And then if we have people that we know a little bit about, we can see if there's any, what what they post, so to speak, right?
Interesting. So you're saying an institution as large as City of Vancouver can actually have a bit more.
We can go to I know Maria, our Chief Communications Officer, have gone to the bigger platforms and said, this is a posting here that is completely in violation of your policies. Can you please remove it?
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Dominado, you have 25 seconds.
Yes, Chair, can I move a second round of questions?
Okay, we need a seconder.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor say yay. Opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carried. Please go ahead.
I thought you were ahead of me. Yes, thanks, Chair. I did want to follow up just on the subject of particularly where you've referenced specific threats against employees. I think you mentioned park rangers. Are we leveraging support in terms of threat assessment around those threats to evaluate the risk associated with some of those threats? Is that something we undertake to support our employees and to protect them?
Yes, we have our in CPS, our threat management unit. That's what they do. They are, and we have an obligation as an employer under, for WorkSafe BC, as well to investigate, assess, and manage those threats. Both, supporting the individual, potentially talking to the subject of concern, and also as an organization. So yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then just in terms of the measures you're undertaking, and was it informed by employees themselves and the different employees, not just those who've experienced threats, but also the broader employee group of the city? Have they had an opportunity to weigh in and provide their feedback and input about what they see needs to happen in order to keep them safe and to deal with some of these behaviors?
So we have not done a complete, survey of the whole organization. We've looked at the groups that have raised their hand, who said, we we don't know what else we can do. We've done all the training, we've done everything we can, and still nothing is changing. So we've started there, like the more difficult ones, but it's a good point to get some additional feedback from the rest of the organization.
Okay, thank you. Chair, I'm just going to offer some comments now at this time because I don't
I'm
think
still on the
we.
queue for questions.
Oh, you've got, and then I'll
Yeah,
come back
okay.
on. Thank you.
I'll come back to you, Councilor Dominado. Okay, so I just put myself on the queue, so just one question here. So, Magnus, I think the speech and behavior from elected officials, especially on social media or in the public realm, might have some impact on the public behavior, which might create some unsafe environment for the public and also for our staff. So, I'm not sure if you can answer this question, but what is your expectation for elected official, for us, in order to make sure that we make sure that our language are cautious, also respect to the free speech, what we can do better to create a safer environment for our staff and for the public?
That's a big question. I don't actually think I have a direct answer on that. I'm also. Can we get back to you with that answer?
Yeah, I see, City Manager.
Yeah, thanks, and I appreciate the question, Chair. I do think that the situation that generally that Magnus has described to you today isn't being prompted by actions by council. I think that my experience with this council is that your communication, certainly towards staff, is respectful. Generally, the communication in this chamber is respectful. So in terms of what's driving this, I wouldn't say that council is a big factor. Certainly, if there's any advice, we will take away and come back to you on that. But just want to address that aspect of your question. That certainly, I wouldn't say that this council is doing anything that's exacerbating this problem.
Yeah, thanks, City Manager. I just sometimes our language might have some unintended consequence towards public and towards our staff. So that's something I want everyone to be aware of. Okay, anyway, so that's all my questions. So Councilor Dominado, your comments?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Chair. And I just wanted to reflect a couple of comments just around the presentation and the overview, and just to say thank you for bringing this forward and presenting it. I think it's important that as council, we're informed about what's happening in the field, what the experience is of our employees, public servants. I appreciate that we're presenting it in public as well, and so that there's a greater awareness of what the experience is of our city employees. And having, many of you know, I was a public servant for most of my career and have had difficult and challenging conversations at times with the public on different issues. But I am concerned about the escalation. Because one thing, as you say, there's these uncomfortable and pleasant interactions, and then this escalation towards threats, intimidation, more violent acts of assault and violence. And unfortunately, I think maybe I'm finding myself increasingly more cynical these days, but I feel like this may be reflective of our current society right now, as it just seems to be increasingly polarized. Whether it be in the political discourse, whether it be in international violence we're seeing, and tensions in the world. And so it's a bit disheartening, I have to say, that this is the trend line that we're seeing in organizations. And so I'm glad that you brought it to our attention, and I'm glad that there are some measured actions underway and that you're engaging with the departments, particularly the ones that have had more experiences in this way. But just to reflect a thank you, and that we will undertake whatever support we can as well as the council. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Dominado. No decisions required on this item, as the presentation is for information only. So that concludes the presentation on the agenda. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for this bring forward this very important topic. All right, so we're gonna move along. The next one is the council members' motion. The first council members' motion is motion 1, fee waiver grant to support Victory Square banner program, and it is moved and introduced by Councilor Montague. Does any member want to declare conflict of interest on this item? Okay, no. All right, so Councilor Montague, you have 2 minutes to introduce your motion.
Thanks, Chair. And just a point of procedure. It's 2 minutes to introduce and then I can close as well for 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
5 minutes, I think, close out.
So I think I'll just start by saying this, hopefully it's this fairly straightforward motion. I think most people know about the primary Remembrance Day ceremonies that take place in Vancouver. They're held at Victory Square, and it's a time-honored tradition that is been going on for generations. What I don't think a lot of people know is that this year marks a year that Victory Square Cenotaph will turn 100 years old. And that volunteer groups, along with BC Yukon Legion, Army, Navy, Air Force, Veterans, BC, have initiated a special, what they call Victory Square 100 program. And it's to honor veterans in a very special and impactful way. And it includes the hanging of banners that feature actual photos of our veterans. And I think everyone can agree that it's important to continue meaningful ways to honor and remember the service and sacrifice of our veterans and to inspire and educate future generations. So this is about giving our veterans the recognition they deserve, saying thank you in a way that will resonate, I think, with residents and visitors who are in our city, and to ensure that people never forget. So I think I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll come back later.
Thank you, Councillor Montague. It's seconded by me, Councillor Zhou. So we're gonna now hear from the registered speaker for this motion. So public speakers should state whether they are in support or in opposition of the recommendations and may only speak once. I also will ask speakers if they are the residents of Vancouver, if it is not noted on the speakers list. Our first registered speaker is King Wang, the president of Army, Navy, Air Force veteran in Canada, also the former president of Chinese Canadian Military Museum. King is here in person. Please go ahead, King. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Your Worship, Mayor Ken Simmons and the city councilors. My name is King Wang, a retired Naval Reserve officer and the president of the Army, Navy, Air Force Veterans of Canada, Pacific Unit 280. I'm here today representing the members of my unit and other veterans in this area. My colleague, Steve Cole, another member of my unit, and I have lived in Vancouver all our lives. And Steve was born in Vancouver, and we both have relatives that served in World War II. In fact, all of Steve's uncle and aunt served in the Canadian Armed Forces in World War II. The city of Vancouver has a singular distinction of being the only city in Vancouver in Canada that supports a civic volunteer committee, the Vancouver Remembrance Day Committee, of which I'm a member for a volunteer for the last 15 years. The Remembrance Day Committee conducts the annual November 11th ceremony to ensure that the legacy of our veterans are honored and that the people of the city are remembering them. This year, Victory Square, as you mentioned, is celebrating its 100th anniversary, marking a milestone that the city of Vancouver has honored and thanked veterans for their sacrifices, and to ensure that Canada never forgets the sacrifices of our armed forces, RCMP, peace officers, merchant navy, and reserves. To mark this Cenotaph Centennial this year, the Royal Canadian Legion BC Yukon Command and the Army, Navy, Air Force Veterans BC Command have collaborated in the Victory Square 100th project. A key feature of the project is the installation of the banners adorned with the photographs of veterans. These banners will be prominently displayed on the street lamppost, with two special focus on Victory Square and the Chinatown Memorial Square during the months of November, leading to it and also the after. Now, this visual homage will not only be enhancing the city's landscape, but also will serve as a constant reminder of the bravery and sacrifice of our veterans. The Victory Square banner program is a fitting tribute to our veterans. We therefore request that the council approve a one-time grant to the Royal Canadian Legion BC Yukon Command and the Army, Navy, Air Force Pacific Unit 280 to offset the cost related to the banner installation, including rental fees. We look forward to the City Council your favorable response to the motion put forward by Councillor Zhou and also Councillor Montague, now before the Council for your approval. I would like to close my presentation with the words from the Act of Remembrance. They shall not grow old, as we that are left to grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. But the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation or in person to the council this morning. I welcome any questions from you.
Thank you, King. Thank you, Steve. This is the end of our speaker list. Thank you for both speaking at the Standing Committee on Cities Finance and Services. Council members, is there any discussion? Okay, Councillor Dominado, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just happy to speak in support of this motion. Thank you to Councillor Montague and Councillor Zhou for bringing it forward. I think it's a really important piece of work, and particularly my grandfather fought overseas in Germany in World War II, and one of the things that, well, he did come home and was able to come home. Many did not. And so the point you made about recognizing the sacrifices of our soldiers, I think is incredibly important. And particularly with the centenary of the 100-year anniversary of Victory Square, I think that we can do more and contribute. And so what I think is this motion is incredibly thoughtful and doing that and supporting the banner program. And so just happy to support it. And thank you for coming and speaking as well today.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Claassen, please go ahead. Oh, sorry, Councillor Kirby-Yung, sorry. Please go ahead. There we go.
There we go. Thanks. Thank you. I really appreciate seeing this motion come forward. So I appreciate Councillor Montague and Joe bringing it forward. And it's a pleasure. Thank you for coming to speak to council today. I remember how much of a difference these things can make. I remember last council when we were moving to install the flagpole with the Canadian flag down at in Chinatown. In the heart there, and how much that actually meant to community, because at the time we heard a lot from the Chinese community that these were citizens effectively who did not have the same rights that everybody else enjoyed, and yet still in a very dedicated fashion put themselves on the line and went to fight the war for a country that did not allow them to vote or own property, had racist and discriminatory land covenant titles, and then they went back to that environment. But the pride that we saw when that Canadian flag was raised in front of the statue of the soldier is down there, is something that I will always remember and stays in my mind. And I think of being there, I think you were both there, and some of the other veterans like George Chow, who came to speak in support and is no longer there, here with us. And I think that it's a privilege to be able to do something to honor them. Some of us have toured through the Military Museum and seen some of the stories, but I think the chance to bring out on this banner program and recognize some of those individuals and heroes who really put themselves on the line for us more broadly in our city and bring that to more residents is a really special thing to do. And so I'm very happy to support it, and I really appreciate you championing this work, and I'm very happy to vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind comments.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Claassen, please go ahead.
Yeah, just my own brief comments in strong support of this. I know for so many years now, attending the Remembrance Day ceremonies just fills my heart. It's an absolutely incredibly important tradition of our city. It's so great to see families out there in great numbers, rain or shine, but preferably when there's sunshine. And I know the impact that the visible banners have all over the city in their different contexts, but this is one that I think is going to be really lovely to see. We always have to be make this careful decisions around our granting, but this is an absolute no-brainer, I think. Councillors Kirby-Yung, Zhou, and I all attended the Chinese-Canadian Military Museum at the end of June. Bod Wong gave us a tour there, and it was very, very eye-opening to understand more of the context of some of our heroes that came here from the Chinese community as well. So very supportive of this, and very look forward to seeing them both in Victory Square and hopefully by the Chinatown Memorial as well.
Just, your microphone's not on, we'll just turn your mic on.
Sorry, we can't do that, right?
The city of Vancouver is the only city
It's okay. It's one time. Thank you, King. Yeah. Okay, Mayor Sim, please go ahead.
I echo a lot of the comments that were made here, including Councillor Kirby Young's. I'm just going to say it. We have the opportunity to be here today because of the sacrifices of our veterans and Lenny and myself in particular, because of the sacrifices and the bravery that the Canadian veterans made, especially in World War II, jumping out of planes over Burma for a country that didn't want them, to give us the right to vote. And, fast forward 80 plus years, we're literally sitting in this chamber. So as a small token of my family's appreciation, we'd like to also contribute another $1,500, which is another 10%, to honor all those that came before us and the shoulders that we get to stand on to be here.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Carr, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your diligence in making sure council is aware and involved in honoring the service of our vets. And I've been to the Remembrance Day ceremonies for many, many years. It is always a highlight of the fall and of the year, because it reminds us of the sacrifice that people have made, that we can enjoy the freedom and the luxury of living in a peaceful society, a democratic society here. My father was a vet. He's no longer with us. Our daughter-in-law's from France. Her family was part of the resistance. Her great uncle was captured and sent to a concentration camp and killed. And I visited, the graveyards in France, and it is. I think everyone should, and remind us how unbelievably precious the liberties we have here are. So thank you for bringing this, and happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Okay, so I'll make some comments here. I have to cede the chair to Councillor Kirby Young? To the Mayor. Okay, so Mayor, I'm going to cede the chair to you so I can make some comments. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so first of all, thanks King and Steve for speaking at the council today to support this motion. So this motion is also very emotional, very personal to me as well. It's my honor to be able to submit this motion with Councillor Montague together. As we approach this significant milestone, 100-year anniversary of this Victory Square cenotaph, we reflect not only on the contributions of veterans from across Canada, but also on those whose story have often been overlooked, yet who played integral roles in shaping our nation. And it is a solemn reminder of the sacrifice made by veterans who fought for the freedom we enjoy today. Today, I also would like to highlight the immense contributions of Chinese Canadian veterans. The grant is the least we can do for them, to remember them, to make sure that our future generations remember them as well. In both wars, Chinese Canadian, despite facing this systemic discrimination in Canada, courageously volunteered to fight for a country that at that time denied them the rights and the recognitions they deserved. They fought not only for liberty and democracy, but also for the hope that their sacrifice will lead to a more just and equitable future for themselves, for their children, and for their communities. Their service became a turning point for Chinese Canadians, earning them citizenship, earning them the right to vote, a victory not just for them, but for all Canadians who believe in fairness and equality. Their determination and sacrifice paved the way for professionals' opportunities that had long been denied to them in sectors such as law, engineering, and medicine. In short, they broke barriers, not just for themselves, but for future generations of Chinese Canadians who now thrive and contribute to every facet of lives in Vancouver and Canada. Without their sacrifice, I would not have the opportunity to stand here today and to serve this great city. The mention before you seek to honor the contribution through the Victory Square banner program by displaying the banners adorned with the image of veterans, including Chinese Canadian veterans, around Victory Square and Chinatown. We ensure their legacy is not forgotten. We remind Vancouverians and all those who visit here in Vancouver that our multicultural society is built on bravery and the sacrifice of individuals from diverse backgrounds. The Chinese Canadian veterans we honored through this program are not only part of Vancouver's history, they are a fundamental part of our Canada's broader story. Supporting this motion is more than just commemorating a centennial. It is about ensuring that contribution of all who served, particularly those whose story has been marginalized, are recognized with the dignity and respect they deserved. It is about continue telling their story so they live on the hearts and the minds of current and future generations. So I really hope my fellow councillor could support this motion so we can, we may continue acknowledge, honor, and celebrate the sacrifice made by Chinese Canadian veterans and all veterans who fought for a better Canada. With that, I look forward to seeing you at the Remembrance Day parade. Thanks. Hey, Councillor Montague, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I won't say much more. There's been some great words here in chambers today. I did want to just conclude by saying thank you to King and Steve for coming in today, representing all the veterans. And I think this is a great way, as I said before, to honor and remember the service and sacrifice, but to also inspire future generations. So I'm excited for council to support this grant to offset the costs related to these banner fees, and I hope the Victory Square 100 program is a success.
Thanks, Councillor. Seeing no one else on the queue, I'm gonna call the vote. So clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? And council member, please register your vote.
Councillor Joe, it's Councillor Meisner here. Can I get a vote assist in favor, please?
Thanks, Councillor. Okay, so did we have all the votes? Okay, so can we put that on the screen? It's all okay, perfect. So this motion has passed unanimously. Thanks, King. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, thanks. All right, so that completes motion 1 on the agenda. Let's take a 2-minute recess, everyone. Yeah, 2-minute recess. Yeah.
Do drink that if you can. Yes. Right? And then, so then like, she's like, oh yeah, if you throw up, then it gets canceled. I drank it, I like try to do it, I threw up. Oh my gosh. Literally, and then like I threw up in the garbage. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they're like, no, it's like that's.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So the next item on the agenda is motion 2, potential to update the Vancouver building bylaw to enable single egress stairs, low and mid-rise buildings to align with provincial change to the BC building code and deliver better quality housing options. And it is moved and introduced by Councillor Kirby Young. Okay, does any member want to declare conflict of interest on this item? Okay, perfect. Councillor Kirby Young, you have 2 minutes to introduce your motion. Please go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Chair. So just to provide some quick context and background, as everybody recalls, big priority for this council is on streamlining policies and permitting in order to deliver more housing faster to help address the housing crisis. We've also seen an increasing focus on missing middle housing with the elimination of essentially single-family zoning and moving towards SMA, or the small-scale multi-unit housing. We also have put down a goal, I should say, to better align the Vancouver building bylaw where it makes sense for efficiency with the provincial one. So in that spirit, following on the province adopting allowing single egress stairs in low and mid-rise buildings up to 6 stories, this motion calls to look at the opportunity to do that in Vancouver as well. So that we can provide more options, which includes things like more multi-unit bedroom units for families, the ability to open up some of those lots that have been zoned so that they can, for multi-unit family, so they can be better utilized, which not having the single egress stairs prevents in terms of sizing and space, can support climate in terms of density and allowing more people to live on those lots, and also cooling, particularly in summers, for example, because you can have windows on both sides of units. So it does open up a lot of possibilities. I will note that there's been some dialogue with the BC Fire Chiefs around the speed of this change. I spoke with both Chief Fry as well as representatives from IAFF with respect to this. So I think generally acknowledge that Vancouver has had some higher standards around fire standards, sprinklering, et cetera, and think that Vancouver actually has the potential, I think, to be a voice in bringing forward any positive suggestions for how single egress stairs can be maintained, but there may be some other considerations to support from a safety perspective. And so consulting with VFRS is included in this motion based on feedback from Chief Fry. And then I also have an amendment to bring later when we get to that stage that includes also engaging IAFF 18 representatives, because I understand they have a couple of code experts with some specific expertise in this area and would like to participate in that process as well. So that's the background on the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Seconded by Councillor Klassen. We'll hear from the registered speaker for this motion. The first registered speaker is Gabriel Peters, co-chair of Vancouver City Planning Commission. Is Gabriel online? Okay, before I start, I need to say public speakers should say whether they are in support or in opposition of this recommendation, and may only speak once. I will also ask speakers if they are residents of Vancouver if it is not noted on the speakers list. Okay, the first speaker, Gabriel Peters.
Good morning. My name is Gabrielle Peters. I live in Vancouver and I am the co-chair of the Vancouver City Planning Commission. I am here to express the Commission's concerns regarding the potential to update the Vancouver Building Bylaw to enable single egress stairs to align with provincial changes to the BC Building Code. We urge Council to direct staff to speak to stakeholders and do further research as to the appropriateness of this change. The Commission wishes to state its unanimous support for the Vancouver Fire Department and fire services across BC, Canada, and the U.S. who have raised serious concerns with single egress stairs buildings. We are alarmed that the objections of those with expertise in fire behavior, the behavior of people in fires, and the needs of those who fight fires have thus far been ignored. The following is an incomplete summary of Commission concerns. Number 1. Process. We have serious concerns about the process leading up to this major change to a policy. It appears to have been rushed through, and given the high stakes, this is alarming. There is no consensus among relevant stakeholders, including fire department, tenant advocate, disability advocate, seniors advocate, architects, and urban planners. We urge the Mayor and Council to work with these stakeholders. There is an absence of cost-benefit analysis. Without this, there is no data supporting that the potential cost savings or convenience associated with single staircase buildings outweigh the risks to human life and safety. 2. Proponents relied on inappropriate comparisons. Europe was used as an example of a successful single stair exit policy. However, Europe does not allow for the use of combustible building materials. Seattle was held up as a model while ignoring the significant differences between the cities. For example, Seattle protocol for fire response is 30 to 40 firefighters on scene within the first 8 minutes. Vancouver protocol for fire response is 8 firefighters expected on scene within the first 8 minutes. A major difference made more so by single stair exit assumption of fire department assisted balcony rescue as a secondary means of emergency egress. 3. This policy shifts the safety and redundancy created by the design of the permanent structure itself in multi-stair exits onto impermanent elements within the structure such as backup power, air pressurization fans, magnetic doors, etc. It is heavily reliant on consistent and effective oversight, maintenance, and enforcement. Yet fire inspection data shows that 40% of fire and life safety systems in apartment buildings are not compliant with fire codes and may not function properly. Research of Canadian apartment building fires showed 9% originated in the means of egress, such as hallways and stairwells, and that smoke affected primary access routes in more than 42% of the fires. The fire does not have to reach your unit to affect you. 68% of residential fire-related deaths were a result of smoke inhalation alone. Occupant limits, which this policy relies on, are inherently impossible to enforce. Holiday parties or other events could result in a higher number of people needing evacuation assistance. 4. There appears to be no consideration of the aging population or the increase in rate of disability. As a wheelchair user, I note the lack of analysis of risk for disabled people or elders in a balcony rescue versus being carried down a flight of stairs, possibly in their own wheelchair. Contrary to the national trend, Vancouver has experienced an increase in the number of fires. There have been 2 in my complex alone. The first fire sent 4 people to hospital. The second required 1 person to be resuscitated on scene. I remained in my apartment while others followed the order to evacuate announced over the PA system by Vancouver Fire and Rescue. I had hoped for a building code change that would ensure I and other disabled people had a means to independently evacuate, not one that leaves more people without the means to.
All right, thanks, speakers. The next speaker is Bob Eric. Is Bob Eric on the line?
Hello?
Bobo Eric, sorry.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Please go ahead. Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, Mayor and Council. Yeah, my name is Bobo Irick. I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I'm a member of the Vancouver Area Neighbours Association, and I'm speaking today in support of Councillor Kirby-Young's motion asking staff to look at how to include single egress buildings into the Vancouver Building Code, now that they are allowed provincially up to 6 stories. The benefits of this change are immense. It allows for development of apartment buildings on small lots, and those smaller buildings can have larger apartments within them because the smaller floor plate allows each apartment to have a larger exterior wall, meaning more windows and meaning bedrooms. When we talk about family-friendly apartments, this is going to be a huge change. And the design panel is often even asking larger buildings to break up the massing to make it look like a smaller building, and this we get for free. I was listening to the previous speaker and the concerns that were raised, especially those from the fire department about fire safety, and those are those are valid concerns. I think what we really need to do is optimize the outcome the overall outcomes for fire safety instead of focusing specifically on severe fires. And the expertise in firefighting that I think we see is more about fighting the fires than specifically addressing policies on how to minimize the number of fires that we have. BC Professional Firefighters Association President Todd Shearling was quoted as saying that it's really just not a safe building structure to operate in emergency situations, which does make me wonder how this works in other places around the world that also allow for single egress stair buildings. I've been struck by how the opposition to these building code changes assume that we're actually building the same kind of building, but just with fewer stairs, when it's really not the case. It changes the whole nature of the building. The whole benefit is that you actually get smaller buildings with fewer people per building, and you get fewer people needing to use each stairwell to evacuate. The new building code from the province also limits the distance between the home and the exit. And so even though Vancouver Fire and Rescue have an excellent response time, I think they're going to have a tough time arriving to fight a fire before most people have evacuated, understanding that the people with disabilities and seniors often have mobility challenges. Anecdotally, when I lived in a 3-story walk-up, the entire building, minus those who chose to stay inside, often because we had false alarms were all too common, everyone would be outside and waiting before the fire truck showed up. I really hope that we'll move forward with this change and get staff to implement these changes as soon as possible. Removing regulations is always difficult because the status quo is deemed better unless it's proven otherwise, and many of the regulations today did not go through the same level of scrutiny when they were enacted, and they have not been updated as the years and decades have gone by. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Bobo. The next one is Peter Dowdy. Is Peter on the line?
Yes, I am.
Hey, please go
Hello,
ahead, Peter.
My name's Peter Dowdy. I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I am also calling in to support the motion to conform the Vancouver building bylaw with the single stair egress reforms that the province passed earlier this year. Single stair buildings are pretty common throughout the world. They've been very successful in Europe and closer to home. Seattle passed an ordinance supporting single stair buildings in 1973, and they've been very successful there as well. There are concerns about safety. There's the theoretical analysis. 2 stairs are better than 1, right? But that runs up very quickly against the practical reality. We're not building in theoretical Vancouver, we're building in actual Vancouver. And in actual Vancouver, it's already legal to build a double-loaded apartment building in which 4 units could be cut off from all egress by a single fire. If that is safe enough for a double egress building, it is safe enough for a single egress building. Because since these regulations were passed decades ago, the culture of firefighting has changed substantially. Since the 70s, and especially in the 90s, building codes throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe switched to requiring more and more non-combustible materials and adding more and more fire control mechanisms such as sprinklers. So the strategy of firefighting today is to prevent and contain, not necessarily to evacuate and let the building burn down. It's also important to note that Vancouver is pretty built out, so all of the buildings enabled by this reform will be replacing other buildings. And that's important because the average age of a home in Vancouver is over 50 years. Before this change in the philosophy of firefighting and the building code amendments to match have taken effect. So the building that this reform will allow is the replacement of older, less fire-safe buildings with newer, more fire-safe buildings. So it's not really a question of whether 2 stairs are safer than 1 stair. It's a question of whether it's safer to live in a duplex built in the 70s that may not even have fire block drywall versus a low-rise apartment built now that has fire block drywall and that has sprinklering systems and, you know, pressurized doors and a lot of other fire containment and control systems. So I think that this reform will save lives because it will make it easier for people to move out of less safe buildings and into more safe buildings. Single-family homes remain the most likely to burn down and the most likely to cause injuries and deaths by fire. And since we're probably not going to go and require that every old single-family home be retrofitted with sprinklers, this is the practical move forward for getting people into safer housing. So I strongly support this motion, and I'm really pleased to see council move so quickly to conform the Vancouver building bylaw, because I know that council has to do extra work because Vancouver is not subject to only...
Thanks, Peter. That's your time. You're 30 seconds over already. Thank you. All right, so this is the end of our speakers list. Thank you, everyone, for speaking to the Standing Committee on City Finance and Services. Committee members, is there any discussion? Councillor Dominado, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, a point of information to the city manager, and it's just a query around, specifically around the direction to report back and the consideration of the single egress stair. Would staff be engaging with our statutory accessibility committee that we've established as part of that policy research and work? Would that be part of the mandate?
Thanks through the chair. So certainly within the time available, there is a report coming to council next month with recommending a number of building code changes we would be intending to address this at the same time. I'm not certain if the extent to which that consultation has happened to date, but that is something that I could go back and make sure that there's some conversation in that regard.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Corbière, please go ahead.
Yeah, I actually wanted to just propose one simple amendment, if you want to move us to amendment queue, Chair.
Okay, I'll move you to the amendment queue. Please add yourself there. Your
yeah, the clerks have it and can bring it up on screen. And as I referenced, I did consult with Chief Fry and Vancouver Fire in this one, but and also had conversations with the IAFF representatives. And then it was just a recent request this morning to just specifically add them into that consultation piece. So it just simply adds those three words and IAFF 18 representatives into the clause B. Thank you.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Corbière, second by Councillor Claassen. Any discussion about this amendment, everyone? Okay. So seeing no one on the queue, I'm going to call the vote for the amendment. Clerk, please take us to the voting screen, and council, please register your vote. All right, so this amendment does pass unanimously. As you can see from the screen. Okay. Let me go back to the main queue. Councillor Corbière, please go ahead.
No, I'm fine for now. I'll come back on later to close.
Thank you. Councillor Claassen?
Thanks very much, Chair. So I just want to, first of all, thank Councillor Kirby-Young for bringing this forward, and also to all of our speakers, and definitely heard a range of views. A representative of the Planning Commission definitely spoke to the accessibility concerns. But we've also heard from a lot of people who are in the building industry as well, who build up to 6-story buildings, and they have been I would express sort of a full-throated support for moving to a single egress model. We also know that the provincial government, before the interregnum period, we did hear from the housing minister also supporting it. Just want to also acknowledge just conversations that have had with, we've heard from Vancouver Fire Rescue, members of the International Association of Firefighters Local 18. A number of us spoke to firefighter representatives at the FCM conference. They had a booth in Calgary and spoke to us about their concerns around this, and as well the BC Professional Firefighters Association, who've also been represented there. It would be foolish not to acknowledge that there is an element of risk here, but we are always balancing risk in terms of the opportunities that come from them. We do know that over the course of time, we've seen a much better way to sprinkler buildings that provides high levels of safety. They really do have a huge impact on the level of fires. The number of fires that we've seen lately are from buildings without sprinkler systems. These would be required. there was a time when fire escapes were very commonplace in larger buildings and houses. It might be interesting to see if there is a response by the building industry to look at potentially providing those for maybe some of the taller structures. But again, we're hearing very overwhelmingly from the building industry that this is an opportunity to create very efficient use of space and create great living conditions for people who would be in these buildings. So I would like to express my support for moving forward on this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's a fast-moving file, and I do want to acknowledge that this came as on the sort of election platform promises from the provincial government, and I think that there is additional work. Councillor Klassen just mentioned full-throated support from architects and stuff. Ironically, we had a presentation at Vancouver City Planning Commission where we heard from Vancouver Fire Rescue that they had concerns around this. Obviously, we've heard from BC Fire chiefs about their concerns around single egress stairs. And interestingly, we heard from an architect at who's on the VCPC who really illustrated some pieces that I think are salient to this. I'm just reading some of the comments that we had in one of the reports in favor. One of the correspondents in favor of this member motion from Abundant Housing, I think, says, good stuff. Europe and Asia could do single stair buildings safely. We should be able to as well. I urge that you take firefighters' concerns with a grain of salt. Most of them know zilch about how things are done in other countries. Now, I realize this does not represent anybody on council's perspective, but I do think that there's a distinction here that, in fact, the architect on VCPC highlighted the fact that we don't build like Europe and Asia. We don't build concrete construction. We build stick construction. So we do have a different fire risk profile. We have a denser housing typology built with 2x4 construction that does burn differently. And where I support the idea, and one of the other pieces that our architect on the VCPC highlighted was that actually one of the more meaningful pieces towards facilitating the build of apartment buildings would be exempting egress from the FSR. And so right now we count the egress points to the FSR, and it actually complicates the building. So there's a lot of work on this. Now, that being said, I hear the concerns from folks in the disability community, and I hear the concerns from folks in the architectural community, and I hear the concerns from folks in the fire protection community. So I do have an additional amendment that I'm just going to ask to jump on the queue. And it's a pretty minor one. I mean, I appreciate.
Sorry, Councillor, I'm going to move you to the amendment queue.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, please add yourself there. Did you circulate the amendment? Oh, you did. Okay, perfect. Okay,
and it's a fairly minor one, and it's really just reflecting what we heard from Arno at VCPC about how the architectural community would have some degree of expertise on this. And I think it's an important piece to add. I did have concerns around the rapidity of the timeline as far as Q4 2024, but I think hearing from the city manager that there is a planned report back, I think that could be accommodated. So I'm no longer concerned about the timeline as much. But there is my amendment, which is basically to add the advice of architects with code and accessibility expertise.
Okay, we need a seconder for this amendment. Seconded by Councillor Carr. Okay, anyone else on the queue speaking to this amendment? Okay, so seeing no one else, I'm gonna call the vote. So Council, please register your vote for this amendment. All right, so this amendment also passed unanimously. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to main queue. Councillor Fry, you have any other comments?
No, appreciate the support for that amendment. I do think that we do have, just to reiterate, that we have a very unique building typology here in the city of Vancouver. Unlike the rest of British Columbia, and certainly unlike Europe and Asia. So I think that it is important to have that sort of fulsome perspective as we contemplate changes that may have significant impacts on life safety and also positive impacts for, or positive benefits for livability. So I look forward to that report back. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Meisner, please go ahead.
I'd like to thank Councillor Kirby-Young for bringing this important motion forward and to the speakers for your input today. This change, as mentioned, will enable new housing forms on lots across the city. So essentially, it's going to allow for housing forms and building forms that may not have been possible previously. So that is a big win, particularly in a housing crisis. So as you've heard today, this will align our building bylaw with the BC Building Code. And Councillor Fry was mentioning Vancouver's unique construction in comparison to other areas of the province. Certainly there are some building forms here that we don't see in other cities, but wood frame construction is quite common across BC in my experience. I'm also reassured that these proposed changes will be performed in tandem with the advice and recommendations of Vancouver Fire and Rescue, and also as a result of the amendment from Councillor Fry from the architecture community, which I think is important as well. So with that said, I plan to support this motion today. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Kirby-Young, to close your motion.
Yeah, thanks. To close on the motion, I am really excited about the potential to I think when you change regulations, you have the ability to be more creative and innovative in delivering housing forms. And as I mentioned earlier, our city is changing away from sort of the single family typology into more small scale multi-unit housing. And that I think it makes it incumbent on us to look at how our regulations are potentially impeding delivering on that. I mentioned earlier that it's not just about delivering more housing, but also the quality of housing. And so those multi-bedroom units are really important for families. Cross ventilation is really important with increasing heat waves and for climate and for livability. And I'm just interested to see how lots can be used, because I think that can create an interesting city when you can have different and interesting design types. I think some of the most interesting cities are the ones where you look at the creativity of architects in terms of, you know, think of San Francisco and others, right, where you really see the infill to create homes for people so that they can actually stay here in the city. So I am excited to look at it. I think, as mentioned, with safety was really important. I know that when the province put the regulations in, there were additional requirements to ensure safety from their perspective in terms of sprinkler systems, wider hallways, things of that nature. And so I think that we're going to get some good perspective back for council to consider. And I'm looking forward to, as I said, aligning so that Vancouver is not always a standalone where we have a different regulation than people have in the rest of the province. So Burnaby, for example, or any of our neighboring municipalities don't have an advantage over being able to deliver that quality of higher quality, livable, and more housing than Vancouver does, while still maintaining essential life safety. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Councillor. So let's go to the vote for this motion as amended. So please register your vote, Council. Okay, so this motion as amended also passed unanimously. Perfect. Thanks, everyone. So that completes motion 2 on the agenda. So the motion 3, the last motion on the agenda, is reviewing council's committee and structures to enhance decision-making progress. And it is moved and introduced by Mayor Sin. Does any member want to declare conflict of interest on this item? Okay, seeing none, Mayor Sin, you have 2 minutes to introduce your motion. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we're focused on continuously improving all of our processes at the City of Vancouver. And at the start of this year, the Mayor's Budget Task Force recommended the inclusion of a finance committee to improve our budgetary processes. And so we're committed to implementing the task force recommendations, and this presents a great opportunity for our team members to review all of our council governance processes and identify where we can make improvements. So my motion states, therefore it be resolved that council direct team members, or in this case, direct staff, to report back in Q1 of 2025 with a review and assessment of the city's current committee structures and systems, including options for alternative approaches to to efficiently align committee structures and systems with the strategic priorities of the city and council. And this will allow team members to come back with the best governance practices for our council to implement and ensure that our committee structure allows flexibility, efficiency, and engagement and helps us build a better city.
Thanks, Mayor. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Seconded by Councilor Kirby-Yung. Okay, we will now hear from the registered speaker for this motion. Public speakers should state whether they're in support or in opposition of the recommendations and may only speak once. I will also ask speakers if they are residents of Vancouver if it is not noted on the speakers list. Our first registered speaker is Maria Massenden. Is Maria on the line?
Yes, I am on the line.
Hey, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes, Maria.
Yes, to council, greetings from Lisbon, Portugal. Portugal is celebrating its 50 years of democracy. The reason why I'm speaking to this motion is because I have concerns over the PNE board, and this motion references the PNE number 5, and then number 7. This motion refers to matter of good board governance practices. Excuse me for stuttering. And I believe the PNE board doesn't do this. I have many concerns about this. And to this, I would like to add is the PNE board. To this, I would like to add, is the board adhering to its bylaws? Governance as approved by council, act in the public best interest, especially as its public, especially at its public board meetings. In the case of the PNE, it is failing to follow its bylaws. Hastings Park PNE governance per MPOP, the multi-party operations policy. In June 2013, the $80,000 was approved to hire an outside consultant to set up the PNE, the Hastings Park PNE governance. I believe this person or this agency was never hired. It was $80,000, and I believe this $80,000 was instead used for electrical structures. Hence, the PNE board was never set up as it should. So it's not adhering to its governance. There's a community advisory group. It isn't being conducted as per governance. This group is a means for public input. For me, this is very serious. Another thing is, the PNE, its bylaw 4.1.4 is required to hold 2 public board meetings. It is not going to hold 2 public board meetings in 2024. For some reason, they canceled the December 2nd, 2024 public meeting without any explanation and deferred it to January 3rd, 2025. For me, this is a serious problem. A board shouldn't act this way. And another thing is, the PNE failed to adhere to its bylaw 4.21. It's to do with.
Okay, Maria, that's your 3 minutes. You're at time right now.
Okay.
Hey, thank you for speaking
thank
at
you.
council.
Chair, I just have a quick point of order, I believe,
please go
and that is just maybe to clarify for the record that this motion does not deal with the PNE board. It has its own separate board and governance structure, and that is not the subject of this motion. And I wonder if we could clarify that for the record.
Okay, sure. Yeah, thanks for the clarification. So, Maria, so this motion has nothing to do with the PNE board. I hope the message from Councilor Kirby-Yung is clear. All right. The next speaker number 2 is Melanie Lee. She's here in person. Please go ahead, Melanie. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Dear City Council members, I'm Melanie, a current high school student and a member of one of the Vancouver committees. I'm speaking today to support and address my suggestions for motion 3. First of all, I would like to thank the City of Vancouver staff for all their work in establishing and holding committees and considering for future improvements. And I appreciated the opportunity to provide my ideas for the motion. I have my first question regarding the first point in the motion, where it states committees are not decision-making bodies, rather they make recommendations to a board or council. Upon the word recommendation, the definition of it is kind of slightly blurred to me. So does it mean committee members can only comment on the items that council or departments give to them, or members are able to make motions or proposals that they find in their daily life and report it back to the council? So if it means that members can only review items, I would strongly suggest to give them opportunities to bring forward their own motions and proposals, because people in the committees hold diverse backgrounds and are in different age groups, which lead to their unique perspectives. Just for example, member in my age will probably focusing on concerns related to education or transportation around schools. Committees are composed of individuals who have valuable insights and expertise in their fields, allowing them to combine thoughts and have a more active role in proposing solutions and addressing emerging concerns directly will enhance the democratic process and ensure that diverse perspectives are incorporated early in the decision-making process. And second, I would like to suggest the council to include a higher youth proportion in the committees. It can be through adding more members or establish a youth advisory committee, because a lot of programs and strategies are related to young people, and as a group that these actions are directly affecting to, young people should be included as part of the committee system. And since all staff are adults, it will be crucial to learn about young people's opinion at the stage of policy construction and decision-making process. Incorporating youth voices will not only ensure that policies are more reflective of their needs, but also help create solutions that are forward-thinking and responsive to the challenges and opportunities facing younger generations. And thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. All right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. All right, so this is the end of our speakers list. Thanks everyone for speaking to the Standing Committee on City Finance and Services. Committee members, is there any discussion? Councilor Dominado, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thank you, Melanie, for coming and speaking, because actually one of the things I've heard, because I've been the liaison to the Children, Youth, and Families Advisory Committee, is the accessibility of that committee for young people, particularly the structure and setup is not necessarily conducive to support the participation of both children and youth in a way that really is appropriate, I think, and really engaging. And so appreciate the comments there. I do want to move an amendment. So if we could go move to an amendment queue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, let me just.
So please add yourself there, Councilor Dominado. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy to second.
Second.
Thank you. And I just,
Yeah, we just received the amendment.
I'll give everyone a moment, and I also want to just pull up some notes as well.
It's seconded by Councilor Carbillo.
Thank you. And so, in speaking, bring the amendment up for me, please. Thank you.
Can we bring the amendment?
They came in.
Seconded by Councilor Carbillo. Can we bring the amendment to the screen, please?
Great, just so everybody can see it.
Okay. There we go.
So, just in this report back by staff, I don't think we can see the language that's amended is not in color anymore, but it was, can we just highlight the language? Okay, can we just pause my timer and I'll just wait till everything's up. Thank you. Perfect, thank you. some of these amendments flow from conversation. I've got an email here from Women Transforming Cities. I know the mayor's staff have also had conversations with members representing Women Transforming Cities, but it's to reflect, to add alternative approaches to efficiently and equitably align committee structures, noting that we have an equity framework here established and endorsed by Vancouver City Council to guide our work, and that we have committed to having an intersectional lens in the work that we undertake, the policy work, but also in how we engage with members of the public. But it also adds that staff be directed to include a jurisdictional scan of best practices for representative democratic engagement in their review and the assessment. And I think this is good practice, particularly to understand how other jurisdictions are doing their work. I know so this is 6 years on council, a year on school board. Some of the feedback I've had was that this standing committee structure, for example, I've been asked numerous times why we don't have a transportation committee or transportation and infrastructure, because of the number of questions and things that we field around those issues, because that really does affect day-to-day life of people living in the city. So that's an example. And again, I don't know how other cities do it, but I have heard that they do have a different range of standing committees that address a number of other issues and topics. We also see that at Metro Vancouver as a board. We have a number of standing committees that don't exist here. And then, as noted, that through our current system of committees, it is an opportunity for individuals and the members of the public to engage with us, to have their voices heard, particularly underrepresented residents. And I know over the course of last term as well that I had heard concerns, as I mentioned just recently in this term, that the Children, Youth and Families Committee, that children and youth are maybe their voices aren't being necessarily heard there in the way that they should be. And I think it's more of a structural issue than anything. And I know last term as well, there were some questions raised around, there was some conflict and toxic environments that sort of surfaced in some of the committees as well. And so I think it's a good opportunity to look at how municipalities are doing this work and undertaking that public engagement. Councillor Klassen and I just had a fantastic roundtable with members of the heritage community. Could have been broader, I think, but it was a really great, very focused roundtable that included councillors and city staff. So we're all hearing the same thing at once, and I think that was really helpful around some potential policy changes that will address issues in that space. So that's it for the amendment, and I'll pause there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Mayor, into the amendment.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment. Thank you very much, Councillor Dominato, for bringing the amendment. And I think it's incredibly thoughtful, and I 100% support it. So thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Kirby, onto the amendment.
Oh, not on the amendment. Sorry.
Okay. So, seeing no one else on the queue, let's go to the vote for the amendment. This is amendment that Councillor Dominato brought forward. So everyone please register your vote. All right, so this amendment also passed unanimously. Now back to the main queue. Councillor Dominato, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Councillor Klassen?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Mayor Sim for bringing forward this motion. I'd like to express my support for the direction proposed by this motion regarding the review and assessment of our city's committee structures and systems. This initiative allows us to ensure that our governance remains responsive and effective in meeting the needs of our citizens and can enhance decision-making at the staff and council level. As we know, committees play a role in decision-making processes. High-functioning committee conversations allow us to break down complex issues that can lead to informed recommendations. However, when it comes to our civic agencies, there have been some concerns expressed about the current construct. There have been significant challenges achieving quorum in several meetings, for example. Simply put, as our city evolves, so must our governance structures. The comprehensive review proposed in this motion will provide us with the opportunity to critically assess how our committees are functioning and whether they are aligned with the strategic priorities.
Councillor Dominato referenced the meeting that recently took place involving multiple stakeholders and involving heritage retention policies. Representatives at the meeting were from the Heritage Commission, from the Heritage Foundation, other leaders in the heritage construction and retention area and industry, as well as city staff that oversee these policies, and council liaisons, myself and Councillor Dominato. And in that 2-hour session and where we met, I thought we achieved an enormous amount of really great ideas and recommendations that can come back to council for further consideration. This is just one example of, I think, of just a way to evolve the way we approach some of these decision-making bodies. So I wholeheartedly agree that a streamlined and efficient committee structure has the potential to enhance our work and improve communication between council and the public. And by exploring other approaches and ensuring that our committees are not duplicating efforts, we can create more effective framework for public participation and engagement. And moreover, this initiative reflects our commitment to good governance practices. We are not agents of the status quo. We are compelled to use good evidence and to create new and innovative ways to achieve our goals as a city. It's our responsibility to ensure that our governance structures are not only efficient, but also adaptable to changing needs of our residents. And by directing staff to report back in Q1 2025, we're taking proactive steps towards renewal and reorganization that will ultimately benefit, I think, our community, our citizens, and the city as a whole. Together, let us work together to create a governance framework that truly serves the best interests of our city and our residents. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Before we move on, so looking at the time, so I need a motion to extend past 12. So motion to finish the business by Councillor Montague. We need a seconder for second by Councillor Claassen. All in favor say yea.
Okay.
Opposed say nay. Okay, this motion carries. Okay, let's move on. Councillor Fry, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I have submitted an amendment, and we can just jump right into an amendment queue.
Okay, so I'll move to the amendment queue. Please add yourself there. Okay,
Yeah, so I sit on the nomination subcommittee with chaired by Councillor Claassen, along with Councillor Dominato, and we've had many discussions around advisory committees. And what I don't see in this motion is actually consulting with the advisory committees. There's an expression we use in the downtown east side often, nothing about us without us. And I think given that context and given, Councillor Claassen sort of alluded to, perhaps some elements of dysfunctionality or where we could improve aspects of advisory committees. And I think it would be prudent and thoughtful to actually consult with advisory committees and see what they have to say and incorporate their recommendations or whatever they have in the review that's coming back from staff. So that's my addition for inclusion.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Okay, so Councillor Kerr, beyond to the amendment.
Yeah, I have a question through you, Chair, if I might, to the city manager. And I'm wondering, I note that we have an amendment now, or sorry, an amended motion so far that incorporates direction to staff to look at a jurisdictional review and scan. And having attended a lot of these advisory committees, I think it would be difficult in the early stages, and I'm interested to get staff input on this, to ask them to kind of comment on in a vacuum on something. And I'm wondering if a better approach might be, and what staff would say about once that jurisdictional scan is completed, that could be shared with advisory committees in terms of input, because at least they would have something to comment to. Otherwise, I feel like this is a little bit open-ended and might be a sort of a hard process for advisory committees and staff to kind of get their arms around. So I'd be interested to hear comments from the city manager on that.
Thanks for the question. It means certainly that would work. I do think one of the challenges too with the timeline of this, I mean, so we would need to come up with a process for that consultation. And again, understanding what the questions are. So obviously having just seen this now, haven't fully formulated that. Being able to go to committees with something to comment on may assist in that, but I mean, we're happy to take council direction on this.
Okay. Yeah, I think my comment on this one now, and I'd be interested to hear from others around the table, is really that this is very open-ended. And I think that one of the challenges that I have observed over 2 terms at council now is not utilizing committee members' time well, because we're not bringing them oftentimes, it's not all the time, but in a lot of cases, we're not bringing them specific things for suggestion or input, and the committees are left to kind of determine their own work plans, or it's like, what do you think about this? And they're like, well, what's the question? And it's very open-ended, and I kind of think what we're trying to do is bring some structure to this. So I'd be interested in having a conversation about evolving this with a little bit more framing, because I just think it's very open and it could turn into a long process, but one that isn't, we're not asking the advisory committees for input on potential possible enhanced options. And I hear, I think it behooves us to present some options, because quite frankly, a lot of these committees aren't able to meet because they don't meet quorum. They've gone to an online, some members like online, some members don't, and they don't hate it. So I'm like, I think we need to really give some structure as to presenting alternatives and options so that we could potentially address some of those challenges that we're seeing. So those are my comments, but I'm interested to listen to the conversation. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Carr?
Thank you. I seconded this and thank Councillor Fry for bringing this amendment forward. It seems to me that if you're talking about committee structures, to actually talk to the people who have volunteered considerable number of hours of their lives to these committees makes perfect sense. They are the ones engaged in the cities, and I think if anybody wants to see that the work they're engaged in aligns with city priorities the most, it would be the people on those committees. So they are, in my measured opinion, having been in a number of them, incredibly dedicated, energetic, responsive, and intelligent people who are volunteering to their time to be involved in guiding the city and providing input. So on the actual structure of these committees, it seems to me that their advice and input would be by far the most valuable. So, honestly, to only be consulted after a consultation process, or to only receive information after a consultation process has been completed, I would, I think that some members of those committees may even be affronted by that. So I think the amendment by Councillor Fry is a very thoughtful one that we should support.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Mayor Sim, please go ahead.
Yeah, sir, this is a question to the city manager. So question for you here. The intention of the motion was not to be super prescriptive, but to trust, our amazing people at the City of Vancouver who are incredibly professional and do this every single day. So my question to you, will this incredibly prescriptive amendment slow us down, or slow you down on doing your work to have our committees, based on your scans of, different cities, what have you, is this going to slow us down and by default slow down the great work that needs to be done at the City of Vancouver?
Thanks for the question. I mean, it does involve work. There are a number of advisory committees that there would need to be a process to engage with. So it will take effort. Again, the motion calls for staff to provide options back to council. So the input from advisory committees, may or may not influence those options, but they may be as context for council to consider the different options. Bottom line, it will take some work. At this point, I can't say how long it will take or whether it would actually slow down, the report back to council. We would obviously look to do it as quickly, as efficiently as possible. But having just seen this now, I couldn't give you specifics on that.
Okay, so maybe you've kind of answered the question, but I'm going to probe a little more. In your best estimation, is this something that will add a couple of weeks or add a year
Yeah, thanks. It won't be a year. It's just we would have to make arrangements with the number of there's several, as you know, to engage with them, present some sort of question, give them an opportunity to consider and provide their feedback, and then collate the feedback. So there's a bit of work there. But it's not months. It just may take us a few extra weeks to go through that process. And I'm not sure in terms of even the schedule of those committees when their meetings are off the top of my head. So we'll just have to work through the logistics of that. But it's not a year. It's much shorter.
Okay. Well, based on that, although I feel this is incredibly prescriptive and it does slow us down. I'll take the advice of, not that you're giving advice, but based on the city manager's comments, and it shouldn't take a long time. I'm okay supporting this amendment right now.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. That's all your comments. Okay, yeah, all right. Councillor Meisner, please go ahead.
Thanks so much, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Fry, for the amendment. I think it's well informed and a good approach. Having served previously on a committee as a resident before being elected to council, I certainly had lots of input as a committee member as to how to improve the structure, the format, et cetera. So I think it's imperative that we do that consultation with committee members. And as we just heard from the city manager, this doesn't need to be an arduous process that takes a year. This can be accomplished in a few weeks. But obviously we want to do a thorough consultation. So I'm in support of whatever time it takes within reason. And this can be done through online surveys, roundtables, et cetera. So actually in the motion, number 7 in the preamble actually gives us a framework for some of the questions we might want to ask committee members. It says, as a matter of good governance practices, boards are frequently encouraged to be self-reflective and ask themselves some key questions, and actually list some of those questions. I think we'd want to adjust those, but no, I think this is the right approach to undertake this process. So I'll be supporting the amendment. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Claassen.
I just want to reflect that I also, what Councillor Meisner just noted, is that there is a process involved in this existing motion to be able to talk to many stakeholders, including the committee members. That the committees themselves all have work plans, and their work plans do not necessarily involved their own future. They are about to try and work on initiatives that are hopefully going to inform good ideas and recommendations that in support of council. The committees themselves, I've heard from a variety of members who have also been a bit challenged by their current structure right now. So, but my hope is that this process might not be as time consuming, because every direction we give to staff does lead to a lot more effort and time. So, perhaps a survey questionnaire on questions that we can get back that would be able to inform staff as they do the work on this motion will be very useful in the end. So, with that, I'll support it. But I also want to make sure that this is not something that will take an enormous amount of time. I think that we have an important role here to try and respond to the needs of the public and look at our committee structures. This is not just including civic agencies, but this is just broadly about how we are doing a lot of the work on several other committees. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Fry? Oh, you just... Oh, you okay. So... Okay, thanks. Seeing no one else on the queue, let's go to the vote for this amendment. So, Council, please register your vote on this amendment. Okay, so This amendment passed with Councillor Montague in opposition. Okay, so let's move back to the main queue. Councillor Fry, you have any additional comments?
No, that's fine. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Kirby-Young, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested to hear this because when I first showed up, my first day as a new counselor, and they're like, "Oh, here's the schedule," and you're learning, you know, where your office is and all those sorts of things, and then you see in your schedule things like the standing committee on civic finance, and then you see the standing committee on policy and services. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to a finance meeting or policy and services, and you're not. Like the agenda items really don't consistently or thematically actually link to the title of those committees. We could just, for example, call our council committees all council because there's no rhyme or reason as to what ends up on a particular agenda. There's no functionality really to the chair and vice chair roles. It's procedural in terms of driving the meeting, but they're not involved, for example, in meaningful finance discussions. That's the role of council as a body. So it's always struck me as quite odd, to be honest, in terms of how that's structured. I also note that there's a lot changing in our landscape around requirements for public hearings that are going to reduce the need for council to have that many of those meetings. And so I'm quite interested. You know, I don't know how to answer the question necessarily when I get asked, also like Councillor Dominetta, why don't we have a transportation committee? That's a really great question, right? A lot of what we do at the city is about land use, right? In terms of and how that works. So I actually think this is a really interesting time to have these conversations. I am a huge fan of citizen engagement. I think that we have a very historical model around advisory committees that limits participation to sort of 10 individuals when sometimes you really want to consult with a big community when you're making a massive policy change on something that is significant to the city. It could be on housing, it could be on with respect to the city's welcoming policies. And I think about, for example, when I was first on Park Board and we launched the first gender neutral washrooms, right? And really hearing the voices of the LGBT community about how those were rolled out. And it's really difficult when you have 10 individuals and maybe you get 6 showing up at a meeting, and a lot of the times the meeting's canceled because they don't have quorum. Do I, as a counselor, know that feedback is that it's incredibly important, and I value the individuals that come that are there, but do I sometimes want to hear additional voices as well? Absolutely, right? Because I think that more input is important and is for counselors to get a true perspective on how communities think. And I also think too that we haven't honestly served our advisory committees well. They have had staff who provide clerical support, but not strategic support around direction. And so committees are kind of left to set their own agendas. And I don't think we're doing a great job, to be super honest, of aligning using the valuable time of those individuals who are donating it and sitting on those committees with the priorities of the city to actually say, what is it that this council, and we all set priorities collectively, did workshops, and that wants to accomplish this term, and how do we utilize civic engagement and citizen engagement to really drill into those priorities for this council and the issues that are the most significant for the city. And so I do think there's a huge amount of opportunity here. And, you know, we're talking about the single egress stair model. It dates back to 1974. I don't know how far back our current committee constructs go across council and standing committees and all the others, but I'm going to bet it's been a long time. And certainly there are some structures and some changes, but I think it behooves us as online engagement is moving forward in leaps and bounds, and how people govern is moving forward, and the pandemic, that now we have virtual meetings, people can call in, they can never do that before. People don't have to physically show up in the archaic thing where they have to drive to City Hall and come here and spend 3 hours and wait their turn. And there's a huge amount of privilege that goes with that you actually have the ability to do that because you're not working 2 jobs and, you know, you can afford to leave your kids or family, or you're not making dinner, or, you know, trying to get your kids to bed, or all those sorts of things. So I think that, you know, the opportunity to kind of look at how we do things is always incredibly important. And I'm looking forward as a counselor to potentially some modern recommendations that can really refresh how we disclose our governance abilities in a really meaningful way. So hopefully we'll get some of that back and we'll see who's doing what and how Vancouver differs. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Dominado, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and really appreciate those closing comments from my colleague, Councillor Kirby-Young. Both of us having now served on council for 6 years together, and I think I am looking forward, like my colleague, to the jurisdictional scan and what best practices are. And I may have shared this story last term, but I'll share it here for those who are new. But when we started getting feedback and input through staff through the Shape Your City related to whether it be development projects or related to policy matters, I probably had a bit of a blank stare because I was like, what's Shape Your City? And I had moved back to the city of Vancouver with a 2-year-old and then had another child quickly after I moved back here. And so I think we have to recognize that people have different ways of engaging, but I was walking in my neighborhood at the one of the neighborhood parks, and I saw a notice on this, my kids are little at this point, and I saw a notice on a bulletin board about consultation that the park board at that time was undertaking around replacing the replacing a wading pool with a splash pad. And I provided input through that survey process because I saw it at the bulletin board. At that time, I was going to the playgrounds a lot with my kids. So I think we have to recognize, and I think I appreciate the comment around technology, this modern era, is how are we have to have multiple avenues for people to participate, to provide input, and that can change over time. And recognizing that when people elect us, they're empowering us to represent them. And we had great value from, I think, last term, the seniors committee and the accessibility committee in providing very specific input into strategies that were coming to the city. But they were very focused in that work and providing, here are some discrete outputs and outcomes we'd like to see with respect to her. So I guess I'm just trying to reflect, there's a diverse way of engaging, and we need to constantly looking at how we do things better, how we improve that process and what that looks like. So I look forward to the report back and interested to hear what other jurisdictions do as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Okay, so this is the end of the queue. So let's go to the vote. So we are voting for the main motion as amended. Just everyone is clear. So no, that's okay. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. All right. Just to remind everyone, this is the main motion as amended. Please register your vote, Council. All right. So this motion as amended passed unanimously. Thanks, everyone. All right, so that completes motion 3, the last motion on the agenda. So the standing committee portion of this meeting is now complete. We will now convene in council with Mayor Sin as chair to deal with recommendations and actions from today's committee meeting. Over to you now, Mayor Sin.
Thank you very much. We will now convene in council to deal with the following recommendations and actions from today's standing committee on city finance and services meeting and urgent business. Clerk, can we please get a roll call?
Mayor Sim in the chair, Councillor Carr, Councillor Kirby-Young, Councillor Dominato, Councillor Bly is on a leave of absence all day for civic business. Councillor Boyle is on a leave of absence for personal reasons all day. Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague.
Present.
Councillor Klassen. Councillor Meisner. Councillor Joe.
Present.
You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. We need a motion to adopt the standing committee's recommendations, reports 1 through 3, and members' motions 1 through 3. Great, Councillor Montague, seconded by Councillor Joe. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, motion carries. Urgent business, we have one item on the agenda for urgent business. Resolution, closure of a portion of road adjacent 525 Paul Street. Note that this resolution is subject to the approval of its report from the council meeting on Tuesday, October the 8th. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? No? Okay, can we please get a mover? Thank you, Councillor Klassen, seconded by Councillor Montague. Is there any discussion? Sorry, I don't have the panel in front of me. I don't see anyone on the queue. So all those in favor say yay.
Yeah.
All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Council, are there any other items of urgent business? For instance, are there any leaves of absent requests that were not brought forward to yesterday's council meeting? And sorry, my computer's freaking out. I'm assuming no one's in the queue.
Uh,
Oh, here we go.
Oh, that's the
Councillor
previous one,
Kirby
right?
Young.
No, that's the previous one. No. All good.
No,
All good.
we're all good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, looks like there's no other urgent business. So, would someone like to move a motion to adjourn? Great, Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Montague. All those in favor, say yay. All those opposed, say nay. Great, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
No, can we